I said I was going to explain box sizing to us. I was going to explain box sizing to us yesterday before the recording stopped. So let me just do that before we look into the form project. Then today, we are after doing the form project and explaining box sizing. Then we are going to look at gradient, background image, and positioning today. And we are also going to look at pseudo classes and pseudo elements. Pseudo classes and pseudo elements. So we are going to look at this, all of this today. So let us proceed. So let us look at box sizing. Like I said earlier on, that box sizing is a property in CSS that allows you to control how an element's total width and height is calculated. By default, the width and the height property include only the content area. Now, if you remember in the box model, when I was explaining box model, let me show you the file so that you can see what I'm about to explain to you. Alright, so this is the box model diagram. So I actually showed you this I think, was it the first time or the second time we started CSS, and this is very, very important. The CSS box model is very, very important. It's one of the most important topics that you need to understand 100% in CSS. One of the most important topics. Now, in this diagram, you will see different properties of the box model that has its own color. Like for the margin box, you can see that it has a yellow color, yellow background. Then for the padding, it has a green color to show you the area of the padding, and the border, it has a black color to show you the area of the border. And we have the content box itself. The content box is the container that is actually holding the content. So now, in explaining box sizing, like I said, that box sizing is a property in CSS that allows you to control how an element's total width and height is calculated. So by default, like I said, that the box sizing property has two values. It has the content box as a value and the box size, the box sizing. Sorry, the border box actually. Hold on. So the box sizing has two values. It has the content box and the border box as a value. So the default, by default, the value of box sizing is content box, which means that the width and the height property include only the content area, excluding padding and border. And I'm going to show you that. So let's say for instance, where is it now? Let's say for instance, in this form property, or let me just use paragraph instead of, or let me use an H. Okay, let me say paragraph instead of instead of a div. Then inside the paragraph, I gave a lorem text of, let's say, 20. A lorem text of 20. Then let us view this in the browser. If I view this in the browser now, you can see this is the text, or let me exclude the height. I just want the height to be the default height, the height that can contain this content, and let me push it to the center so that you can see it very well. Let me just say margin. Of course, I already explained this to you, so I want to push this to the center, so I can say top and bottom. Probably I can say like 5%, right? Top 5% for top, then left and right I want it to be auto, then I want bottom to be 0, or I can say 0 pixel. Then I save. Then let us see what we have. So this is it here. So I want to inspect this. I want to inspect this particular element. So let me hover on it. If I hover on it and I inspect, then I come to this part here. So I open it so I can see this now. I can see this. So let's say, so look at the height here. So let's analyze this actually. So all of this here is the same thing as this one here. So please, let's follow along. So here, this is this place that I just hovered. Notice that when I hover on this content area, watch what you are going to see here. What you are going to see here actually. So I'm going to hover on this content area. So apparently there's no padding, there's no padding, and there's no border around it. Do you get it now? There's no padding and there's no border. So this is the content area. So by default, the box sizing has a default value of content area, which simply means that once you add height and width to an HTML element, the height and width property will be calculated in the content area, not in the box area, not in the border area, not in the border box area. It will be calculated in the content area. Meaning, for example, if now I want to include padding into this, if I want to include padding now, for example, into this element, let us see the behavior of the element. First and foremost, let us explain what's the meaning of content box, because content box is one of the value of the box sizing property. And content box simply means that it defines how the size of an element is calculated. So by using content box, the width and the height property only includes the content area. This one here, the content area. You can see that the width is 200 and the height is 110.400 pixel, and the width and the height property only includes the content area of an element and excluding padding and border. Excluding padding and border. So if I come here and I say, okay, I want to add padding. If I add padding I want to add padding of 10 pixel top and bottom, 20 pixel left and right, and I save. This is going to be big. Can you see? It's now big. The size of the content is now big. The reason is, can you see now? Padding now has been added to Padding has been added to the content area. padding had been added. So you now have padding around the content area. Initially there was no padding, but now you now have what? Padding around what? The content area. So from the top you have 10 pixel padding, from the bottom you have 10 pixel padding, from the left and right you have what? 20 pixel padding. So automatically this will increase the width and the height of this content. This will increase the width and the height of this content. So now look at, this is the original content area. Then around the content area you have padding. So adding padding to this content area has increased the size, overall size of the element. It has increased the overall size of the element. So that is the default of content box. Meaning that if you add padding and border to the element, is going to be outside of the content box. So that is what makes this content box, this content itself, very big. So can you see it now? But in the case of, now you can see that the width now, if you observe, the width is no longer 200 anymore. Let me increase the height. Let me say the height should be like let me say the height should be like 120 pixel. Let's save this so that we can have even numbers. So now can you see? Now let's observe. Now you can see that the height, let us see now the width itself. Now the total width is no longer 200. The total width now of this content is now the original width that we set to the content plus the padding. So now if you are looking at width spans across the left side and the right side. So horizontal, that's the width. So if you want to check the width now, the width is now 200 plus 20 plus 20. So that makes it 240 in total. That's this width, this content now is now what? 240 pixel in width in total, because what we have added what? Padding on the left side and on the right side. Meanwhile, the original width in the content area or in the content box is what? 200. But because we have added padding on the left side and on the right side, it has increased the size of the word element. So increasing the size of the element, so we are going to add that padding to the width, to the original width, so that we can be able to get the real width. So 20 plus 20 on the left side, 20 on the right side, that makes what? 40 plus the original 200 width, that's what? 240. So that's 240 for this width. So the same thing too for the height. The height is 120, but we have 10 pixel padding on the top, 10 pixel padding on the left, on the bottom. So the total now will now be 120 plus 10, that's 130, plus 10, that's 140. So this is the original behavior of what? Content box, whereby the padding and the padding that you add to it is excluded from the content box. So the padding that you add to it is excluded from the content box. So let's just imagine now we now add box sizing to the border box. So say box sizing to the what? Border box. So let me explain border box to you. So the border box is a widely used value of box sizing property. By using border box, the width and the height property include the content area, padding, and what? Border in the total dimension of an element. This means that the specified width and height value will apply to the entire element, including border and what? Padding. So this is what it simply means. If I save this now and I come back to this part here, now look at what we have. Look at what we have. Okay, you know what? Let me just design another one. Let me create another one so that you see what I'm talking about. Let me make this box sizing 2. Box sizing 2. So I come here, I do dot box sizing 2 and I save. Let me just copy all of this and I paste it here. I'll remove this one. Then I can increase this to, let's say, 150 in height, and I can change this to border box. Let me make this one, let's say 10%, and I can make this, let's say 3%. So let's save. Let us see what we have. Good. So let me, please hold on. So I'm just going to increase this width to be like, let's say, let me increase the width to be, let's say 280 per se, and let me make this one 180. So we save. Then let us analyze the difference. Okay, we want to analyze the difference here. Are you with me? Let us analyze the difference. So here we are. Let us start from here. Let us analyze this one. So in this case, this one here is content. Let me even write it on top. Let me write it on top. Let me say, what can I do now? Let me do something like H3. Let me do something like H3. Content, box sizing, content, box. Why this one? Let me just do an inline styling here. Let me not stress myself. Let me just do inline styling. Style, let's say margin, top and bottom, 0, left and right, auto. So I save, and let me copy this and paste it here. Let me make this one border box. Make it border box. So let's see what we have. Okay, I'm supposed to make this, instead of margin, I'm supposed to do text align, not margin. Text align to be center. Then this one too, center. Text align, center. Let's see what we have now. Good. So this is it here. Box sizing this, box sizing that. Then what I'm going to do is, okay, let me make this 3%. All right, good. So this one here is for this one here is for this one. Why this one here is for this one? So let us analyze this. So let's inspect. So the difference between content box and border box. Difference between content box and border box. So this is what it means here. So in this case, in simplicity, or in simple terms, content box, when you set the box sizing to content box, it means that the padding and the border is excluded from the width and the height of the content box. Simple. Is excluded from the width and the height of what? The content box. That's for content box. It means that the padding and border of an element is excluded from the width and height of the content area of an element. So do you get it now? So the padding and the border of an element is excluded from the width and the height of the content area of an element. Is excluded from it. So once you add padding and border, it's going to be added to the width. So when padding and border is added to an element, when it's added to an element, the padding and border will be added to the height and width of the content area of an element. So this is what it simply means by default, that when the padding and border of an element is excluded from the width and the height of the content area of an element. So when you now add padding, or when padding and border is added to an element, the padding and border will be added together with the height and the width of the content area. That is how it is. So that's for content box. And if you view it here, that is what we have. Look at it here. This is the content area, and the content area has what? 200 width and 120 height. Then the padding that we added around it, can you see the padding? The padding is outside of the content area. So it means that if we are setting padding to this kind of content box, it means that the padding together with the size of the box, the content area, will be added together. So it will increase the overall height and the overall width of this content, of this element. So the overall height now will be 120 plus 1010, that's 140. Then the overall height of this will be what? 240. So do you get it now? So adding padding and border to an element, adding padding and border to an element whose border sizing is content box is going to affect the overall size of what? The element. It's going to affect the overall size of what? The element. So now let us look at padding, box, what do you call it? Border box. If you hover on it and you inspect, let us see what we have here. The original width is what? The original width is 280, and the padding on top and bottom is what? The original width is 280 and the original height is what? 180. So the padding is what? 10 both top and bottom, 20 both left and right. So if you view it now you can see that the width has reduced. Initial width is what? The initial width is 280 and the height is 180. But how come it has reduced to 240 and 160? It is because in border box, let me write it here. For border box, the padding, the border box, when box sizing is set, to border box, it means that the value of padding and margin and border that you add to the element will be subtracted from the width and height of the content area. Will be subtracted from the width and height of the content area. such that at the end you will still retain the original width and height that you set for an element, or to an element, I don't know. So this is it here. So it means that when you set a element box sizing to border box, it means that the padding that you add to it and the border is going to be subtracted from the width and the height of what the content area. So the width is 280. The width is 280, and we added 20 pixels both left and right. So 20 both left and right will be what? 40. So 40 minus 280 will be what? 240. So the actual width now will not be what? 240. 240. Then for the padding on top and bottom, which is 10 pixels, that's 20. So 20 will be subtracted from the height of what? This content box. The height of this element, which is 180. So 20 minus 180, you are going to have 160. So, but the overall result is going to be what? Is going to be 280 pixel, 160 pixel. The reason why we are having border box is because we still want to have the same width and the same what? Height. But whenever we add padding or margin, we want the value that we add to the value of the padding and the border to be subtracted from the width and the height of the content area, so that once you do your subtraction and you still have your width and you still have your padding and you still have your border, the overall value for that element will still be the initial value that you set for the initial width value and height value that you set for the element. That's it. And it is appropriate, it is good that you set your box sizing. It is good that you set your box sizing to border box, so that your element will not just be big anyhow, so that you can be able to control the size of your element. It's very important. You can control the size of your element. So if you give an element 800 pixel and height of 400 pixel, even though you had width and height to it, the overall width will still be what? 800 pixel, and the overall height will still be what? 400 pixel. So the value of the width will be subtracted from the content box, the content area. So that is actually what it means. So it is advisable to always set your element to what? Box sizing. So that is that. So I'm just going to remove all of this. I've used that to explain what I want to explain. I'm going to remove all of this, and let's go back to our form. So in this case, I'm going to remove this one too, and I'm going to comment this, so that this is a universal selector. It selects all the HTML elements. So we said we are setting all the HTML elements to margin is 0, padding is 0, border sizing to be what? Border box. So this is how we do CSS reset. So whenever you are developing or you are building a website, you need this particular one first. You have to add it first in your HTML element. So that's that. So let us look at what we have here for the form. So we have log in to get what started, the username and what the password, but this is not what we actually want. We want to style it so that it's going to be what? Very beautiful. So I'm going to copy this login form here, container. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it here. You know, it is a class, so selecting class in HTML and CSS, you use period and the name of the class. So I think that one, I don't need to go over it again. Okay, so let's proceed. So say we want to give it a background color. Let's say we are giving it a background color of what color should I use now? Let's just use okay, let's use this one, dark slate gray. So if we view it, so this is what we have, dark slate gray. So now I'm going to give it a width. Let me give it a width of let's say 300 pixel, and a height of let me give it a height of fit content. So we want the height to fit the content. So fit content is also a value for height. So we don't just set only number value, percentage value, pixel value, rem value for height. We can also set what? Keywords value. Like, can you see the 3 keywords that we have? Fit content, mass content, and what? Minimum content. So this fit content, meaning that you only want the height that can fit the content that you have. So in fact, it's self-explanatory. Fit content. So you don't want to give it any particular value. Maybe you don't want to give it like 400 pixel. You don't want to give it like 900 pixel for the height. You just want an height that fits the actual content of what? Of that element. You want an height that fits the actual content. So you just say fit content. So this will help you from setting. So you can see the height now is fitting the content of this. So now I'm going to now say I want a margin from the top. I want like 5%. I want top and bottom. I want auto. Then I want left and right. Left and right auto. Top 5%. Then bottom is 0 pixel. Then if we save, this is what we have. Can you see it? Then I'm just going to enlarge. I'm going to use padding now to enlarge, to increase the size. So I'm going to say padding 20 pixel top and bottom, then 10 pixel left and right. So let us see what we have. Can you see? Can you see? So that is that. And the next thing I want us to do is to change the color. Okay, let me increase the width a bit. Let me make this 400. So we are trying to style form. So let's make it 400. Then I'm going to come here. I'm going to select the h2. So I will say dot login container space then h2. So I explained different types of selector yesterday. Though the video is not available, I'm going to send the video along with this. I explained descendant selector and I explained child selector or children selector. I'm still going to explain other selectors as we we continue this CSS class. So I explained child selector and children, descendant selector and what they call it, child selector yesterday. So this kind of selector whereby you select this container and h2. So it simply means that apparently this login form container is the one holding all of these element, this h2 and the form element. So apparently this h2 is a direct child towards this one here. It's a direct child to this container, and the form 2 is also a direct child to this container. So this container, which has a class of login form container, has 2 children. That's the h2 as one of the children and form as one of the children. And even form 2 has a lot of children. The form has 2 children, which is this 2 div, this one here, and this 2 and this other div here. And even the div 2 has 2 children, which is the label and the input. So you can see that we are having nested elements, nested HTML element inside another. So it means that we can create a relationship whereby we can have descendants, we can have grandparent, grandchild, and all those things. So this is what brings about the idea of descendant selector, in the sense that if you want to select input, let's say if you want to select this div now, if you want to select this div, you know that this div is not the direct child of what? Login form container, but you know that it has some kind of connection to this. You know that this one here is not the direct child, but it's like the grandchild of what? This one here, because this is like the grandparent and this is the grandchild. Then form is the parent, is the child of what? This login form, which is the parent. So that is what generates or brought about the descendant selector and also the child selector. So now how do you select descendant? The syntax for descendant selector is the container, or let's say for example we want to select h2 now that is inside of login form, because in our HTML code now we can have a lot of h2. For instance, in our HTML code we can have a lot of h2, and probably we just only want to select h2 that is only inside of this container. So what are we going to do? We are going to first of all select the container, then a space, then h2. So this kind of selector is called what? Descendant selector. So descendant selector both work for element that is a direct child to a parent container, or element that is not a direct child but like a ground child, or that is just connected to the what, to the container. So we can use what, the sender selector for this. Oh, and how do we do it? Select the element, select the element, select the element that you want to select the sender selector. You just need what, space. Let me just use that word, space. So you are selecting the parent or the grandparent or whatever container, then what, the element that is inside of that container. So you are putting space here. So it means that you are looking for the H2 that is inside of this container. So imagine if you have like hundreds of H2 or 5 H2 or 6 H2 in different containers. The major focus is I'm looking for H2 that is inside of what, login form container. So that is that. So now let's proceed. So here now I'm going to say text align. I'm going to make it what, center, and I'm going to give it a color of let's say a color of white. So I'm going to use hexadecimal, a color of white, and let's see what we have. Good, a color of white. So I'm going to do a margin. So I want to have a space around that H2 because it's too squashed. So I want to have a space around the H2 and the form. So I'm going to say margin top, no, margin bottom. Actually, I'm going to do something like 20 pixel. So if I save, yeah, the space is now there. And so let's proceed. So in this case, we have this div. So I'm going to select form, and I'm going to select div. So this is what we are going to do. I'm going to do something like that. I'm going to say, okay, dot login, then form, then div, You know what we have here is all of this. This label is an inline element, while the input is also an inline element. You know, I told you that we have inline element and we have block element, and we have block element. So apparently label and input field, label and input, whatever kind of input, and other form element like select, option, like a checkbox and radio button, all of these and button as well, all of these are what, inline elements. So you can see that they only take the width that is appropriate for their content. So but in this case, I'm going to select the label. And also I want to select the input too. So I'll say, okay, let me select the label. I'm going to make the label display. So I want to change the display because the default display is what, inline. So I want to change it to block. So if I change it to block now, it's going to affect all the labels. Can you see? The label now is not taking the full width of this container, this login form container. So that is why you see that the input field is now coming under. The input field is now what, coming under. So I want to change the label text transform now to be uppercase. I want it to be uppercase, and I want probably a color, maybe a color of I'm looking for, let's just make some nice, let's make it strange. Yes, let's just make it strange. Let's make it strange. Then also I'm going to select the input field too. Select the input field. I'm going to paste it here. So I'm going to select the input field. So this kind of selector means that I am selecting the input field that is inside of div that is inside of form, and form that is inside of what, login form container. So in this case, I'm going to have a margin because they are too close to each other, the label and the input. I'm going to have like a small margin. I'm going to say margin bottom. I'm just going to say 5 pixel. So if I save that, look at what we have. So we have some space. So now I'm going to change the display of input to be what, block. I'm going to change it to block. So apparently it's going to take the full width of what, this container here. And notice that Input. Input usually comes with a default settings. Input usually comes with a default settings. It comes with a white background color, and it comes with border, and it even comes with an outline when the input is in its focus state. When I mean focus state, it means that when the input is active, when you click on the input, it will bring out this outline. This outline is a border. So you can see that by default, every HTML element has its own behavior, Every HTML element has its own behavior, has its own default behavior. So you has its own default behavior and also has its own default styling. Every HTML element has its own default behavior and default word styling. So we can prevent those behavior when we get to JavaScript, and we can change this default styling in CSS that, okay, we don't want this kind of styling. I want to have a different styling. Do you get it now? So when I click on this input feed, I don't just want to see this outline, that this border outline here. I don't want to see it. I want to change it. And also, I don't want to see this border that comes by default with every input feed. And I want to change this word background color. So let's say I don't want this background color to be white. I want the background color to be the color of what? The color of the container. So first of all, what I'm going to do is, if I want to remove the border, I can say border. I want to remove the border. I don't want that border. I can say border none. Simple. Then I can say I want to remove the background color. I can say background color or background. I can either do background color or background. More on that later. I can say background color. I don't want it to be white, and I don't want to give it another color. I can either say background color none, or I can give it transparent. So I say transparent. So it's going to take the color of what? Of this element. Now you can see that there's nothing there. Meanwhile, there's something there. Can you see? There's something there. You can see the outline. So what I want to do now is, I want to have a border button. A border button where I will give it like 2 pixels solid and like maybe a tomato color. If I save this now, you see what we have. Can you see it now? This is it here. Very simple. So I'm going to give it a margin button of, let's say, 5 pixels. Yes, 5 pixels. Then for the div, this div here, I want to separate this div. The div that is holding both the label and the input, I want to give them a margin button or a padding. Should I give it margin or padding? Okay, let me just give it a margin button or margin top. Or let's say margin button, whether margin button or margin top, I want to give it like 20 pixels. So can you see? So if I use this pesticide now, you will see what I'm talking about. So this is the space. This is the space. So here we go. Now I want the width of the label. I want the width of this content to be like the width of this label now, or the input width to be like 100%. So let's see what we have here. So 100%, so it's going to span across the entire width of the browser. Can you see? It's going to span across the entire width of this form element. So can you see? 100%. So that's what we have. So now can you see? But I want to remove this border, that anytime I click on this input feed, I don't want to see this outline. So what am I going to do? I'm going to come here. I'm going to set the outline. I'll say outline to be what? None. So if I save it now, let's see what we have. Can you see? It's no longer there again. It's no longer what there. Then I can type anything that I want to type. So yeah, I'm going to make the color of the text to be what? White. And I'm going to give it a font size of a font size of, let's say probably let's say 16 pixel. Hope it's not too much. 16 pixel. So now can you see, so this is our form. This is our form. Very simple, very simple. So can you see it? This is how we can design a form in CSS. So we can also add some things to, like, let's say for example, if you want the vertex, this edge, the edges of this container to be a bit curved, you are going to use what? Border radius. And I introduced border radius to you when we were doing that table element. So I can come here, I can say, okay, I can say border radius. I just want the edges to be a bit curved, I can say 5 pixels or 10 pixels. So if we save this now, so this border radius 10 pixel is going to affect all the sides. Can you see? Oh, sorry, I'm doing it for input, and it kind of makes sense for input actually. Okay, I don't want it for input, it's not looking nice. Let me remove it. I was doing it for input. Let me do it for the container itself. That's this one here. Paste it in and I save. Here we go. Can you see? Very interesting. So this is what we have so far. I can even do something like for the H1. Where is it? Is it H1 or H2? I can do an underline, like text decoration. Underline. Let's see what we have. I don't like this. Instead of doing underline, I can do, let me just do border bottom. Let me do border bottom. Let's say 2 pixel, solid, and let's do a color of tomato. Let's just be crazy with colors. Can you see it? So this is what we have. So I can now create a space between the border and the padding. I can create a space between the border and the content. So the space between, the difference between the content area and the border is what? Padding. So I can create a padding bottom. So let me do padding bottom. I can just do 5 pixel, something that is, just do 5 pixel, and let us go. Can you see it now? So username, can do it like this if I like, and I can decide to remove the what? The border. I can decide to remove the border bottom. Since, let me remove it. It's not really making sense like this. Let me remove it and save. So this is what we have. Login to get started, blah and blah. So very simple. We are good to go. So there's still some other things I'm going to still introduce to you in form. So this is just to let you, with the things that we have learned so far, we can be able to do something nice. So can you see it? Very interesting. So now let us see. The next thing we are going to look at is what's that again? Let's look at gradient. Let's look at gradient. So we've styled images, we've styled form. Is it form now? Form styling. Then we've done, okay, so let's look at post gradients and background images. So we're going to look at gradients and background images. So let's go straight in. Now then after linear gradient, after gradient, background images, then we are going to look at positioning. We are going to look at positioning. After positioning, if we have time, we can touch pseudo classes and pseudo elements. So let's dive in. So what is linear gradient? You know, for example, if you, okay, a gradient is a transition from one color to another. a gradient is a transition from one color to what another. So there are two types of gradient that we have. Perhaps there are three. We have the linear gradient, we have the radial gradient, and we have the iconic or conic gradient. Yeah, conic gradient. But the one that is mostly used is the linear gradient. Linear gradient. So linear gradient changes color along a line from one edge of an element to the other, while radial gradient starts at a point and spread outward in a circular or elliptical shape. So we can control both the size and the direction of a linear gradient function. So the value that a linear gradient receives is what? Pixel, percentage, degree, direction. So you can either use pixel as a value, percentage as a value, degrees as a value, and direction like top, bottom, right, left as what? A value. So let us look at that one after the other. So to set a gradient color, or a linear gradient color, you need what? The background property. You need what? The background property. So here I'm going to let me create a new file, and I'm going to call it gradient.html. So apparently I'm just going to do an inline style here. Sorry, an embedded CSS style. I don't have to create a CSS style for it. So let me give this a title, CSS class, then gradient. So here I'm going to have a div of gradient 1. I'm going to have gradient 1. I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to have gradient 2 and gradient 3. Let's save this. So I'm not going to add anything here at all. So I'm just going to copy all of this. So dot gradient 1. So I'm going to do a group selector. Okay, first of all, for embedded CSS, oh, look at where I'm writing it, my bad. So inside of the head tag, I'm going to do a title, then dot gradient, then dot gradient 2 dot gradient 3. So I want to give it this is a group selector. So I want to give it a default width. I'll say width of 300 pixel, then height of 300 pixel. We save. So this is what we have. And now, so let's just do an individual. Let's give them a background. So let's say I want, let's say background. So now background, then type linear gradient. So this linear gradient. So when you are transiting, please hold on. All right. So to use a linear gradient, first of all, you need the background CSS property first, then linear gradient, then the colors that you want to transit from to another color. So when you want to transit from one color to another color, you need at least one color value in the linear gradient. You cannot put one color value and you expect to move, and you expect to have a smooth transition from one color to another color. So you must have at least two colors that you want to transit. So for example, I want to move from yellow to what? Purple. I want to move from yellow to purple. If I save this, and let's say the third one, let's say the second one, I want to move from let's say green and green, gold, and black. So then this other one, I can make it let's just say I want it to transit from tomato to Cora, then to powder blue. Yeah, so if we save this now, open it with live server, I don't want this. No. Okay, so alright, so this is what we have here, all of this. So what I'm going to do is by default div is a block element, so I don't want it to be a block element. I want it to be I'm going to say display inline block. So they can be side by side. Block elements usually block each other, so they always take the full width of a browser. So now I'm making it inline block, which means that inline block simply means that it is inline, but it still has the characteristic of a block. Meaning that for block element, you can set height, you can set margin, you can set width to it. So that is the meaning. So this is what we have here. So there's no much obvious difference between tomato and Cora. So I'm just going to say tomato, and which other color can I give? Indigo. So I say indigo. Alright, good. So this is what we have. So you can see the transition of one color to another. Can you see the transition? So this is what we call linear gradient. So linear gradient, you can see we have, for this color, we have yellow and what? Purple. So you can see the smooth transition. This is yellow, this is yellow, consecrated yellow. Then as it keeps moving, as it keeps transiting from yellow to purple, you can see this area. This area is the transition part. This area is the transition part. Then it smoothly transitions from yellow to what? Purple. So this area is the consecrated what? Purple. And this area is the consecrated yellow. Then this area is where the transition occurs, where the smooth transition occurs. So the same thing here. We have yellow, we have green, yellow, and what? Black. Then here tomato, indigo, then the powder blue. Can you see? Very interesting. So now in this case, you can see that by default, the two colors, or the colors, transit from top to bottom. It transits from top to bottom. Can you see? From top to bottom, depending on the color that is starting first. So in this case, yellow is starting. So yellow is before purple. So it's going to start from yellow down. So it's starting from the top to bottom. That is the default. That is the default for linear gradient. But but you can change the direction of the. You can change the direction of. You can change the direction of the transition. You can say, okay, I don't want it to be top and bottom. I want it to be bottom to top. I want it to be left. I want it to be left to right, and I want it to be right to left. I want it to be in angle. Let it move from one angle to another angle. maybe 40 degree to 360 degree, whichever one. So you can set actually the direction of the transition. It doesn't have to be top to bottom. It can be bottom to top, left to right, or right to left, or from one angle to another angle. So not just that, you can also set the size of the color. You can say, okay, I want the transition to occur at maybe 50%, 70%, or whichever percent. So now, for us to be able to set the color, now, like we said, we can control the direction and the size of the linear gradient function. So in this case, where we have red 50%, green 100%, we can, and also we can stop the smooth transition. We can stop the smooth transition. So before we do that, let's just say, okay, in this case here, I want green to transit and get to what? 40%. Okay, let's do it this way. Let's come to yellow. I want yellow I want the size. I can set the size of yellow. I want the size of yellow to be 40%. Let's watch. The size of yellow to be 40%. Can you see? So yellow is 40% to this point. Then this other part here is where the transitions would occurred. So I can say purple also to be, let's say 100%. I'm coming, let's watch. Let's see. So by default, purple will be what? 100%, because you are moving from, let's just leave it like this. You are moving from, let's say, you are setting the size of the yellow. You are saying, okay, yellow, we want the size of yellow to be 40%. Then the remaining 60% should transit from yellow to what? Purple. To transit from yellow to purple. So let's say from this part to one part, in this case is what? 40%. Then from this part here down is going to transit from yellow to what? Purple. So let's say, for example, we also want purple to start from 50%. So it means that we are giving purple a size of what? 50% and yellow a size of 40%. So the transition that is going to occur between yellow and purple is going to be within 10%. It's going to be within 41 to what? 49%. So let's see. Can you see the transition? Because we already gave purple 50%. So from here to here is 50%. Then yellow from here to here is 40%. So the remaining percent that is left, which is what? From 41 to 49. That's where you are going to have this transition. So we can also say, okay, we want the size of purple to be like 20%. So let us see what we have. Not 20%. I said 20%. I want it to be like 90% or 80%. So if I say 80%, so can you see from here to this is 40. From here to this is 40. Then from 41 to 74, that's where the transition is going to. From 41 to 79, that's where the transition is going to occur. Then from 80% down to 100, that's the size of what? The purple. But we can also stop the transition. We can say we don't want transition at all. We just want yellow and what? Purple. We don't want transition. It's simply so that in other case we have to make sure that the size of yellow, which is 40, and we are going to say, okay, we want purple to be 60, so that we will not have any transition at all. So if we save this now, okay, we are still having transition. Okay, I'm going to, okay, not 40, I'm going to say 40 here, yeah. 40, so that's it. So you see, there's no transition. So it simply means that the size of yellow is 40. So we are saying we want to start from, want the size of purple to be what? 40, to start from 40% downwards. Do you get it now? So let's say from here, it is 0% down to 40. So I say, okay, purple wants you to start from 40% downwards to 100%. So you see that there's no what? There will not be what? Transition. So if I say 50%, and I want this one to be 50%, so I want it to be equal, and I save. Look at what we have. So you can see that we can also stop the transition by giving this element the same size. So do you see it now? So wherever one color stops, the size of the color, wherever it stops, you can continue from there, come then down to 100%, so that you won't have any transition between them at all. So this is it. You can stop the transition. You can stop the transition, and also, so this is how to do it. This is how to do it. Percentage, actually, you can use percentage, and you can also use pixel, but percentage is appropriate, is better. And also you can change the size, you can change the direction of the transition. You can say, okay, if you want the direction to be to top, because by default the direction is from top to bottom. Can you see? The direction is from top to bottom. Can you see? To bottom. It means that from top to what? Bottom. And the equivalent value of to bottom in degree is 180 degree. Can you see? It's what? 180 degree. 180 degree. So let's say, for example, I come here. So for us to do that, we'll come to this part here and we'll say to top. I think so, yeah. To top. I'm coming to top, yeah. So no, not to top, to bottom. To bottom. We save. Please hold on. Let me. All right, let's continue. So we have to bottom. This is what we have, to bottom. So if we save this, I will come here. By default is what? Is from top to what? Bottom. By default is from top to bottom. And the equivalent of this keyword to bottom in percentage, sorry, in degree is what? 180 degree. Yes, 180 degree. And let us save. Can you see? Still the same thing. So do you get it now? Still the same thing. Then we can also change the size from left to right. From what? Left to what? Right. So we can say to right. Let's see what we have. So look at what we have here. Can you see? Yellow to what? Purple. Can you see? We have changed the direction. And the equivalent of this in degree is what? 90 degree. 90 degree. So let's see what we have here. Is it 90 degree? Oh, sorry, 90 degree. I was writing 90%. Sorry, 90 degree. Can you see it? So okay, then we'll also look at to left. That means from right to left. From what? Right to left. So let us see it from right to left. So let's say to left. So that's going to be from right to left. So you're going to have yellow transiting from right to left. Can you see it? From right to what? Left. Can you see it? Interesting. So that's that. And I think the equivalent of this in degree should be like 270 degree, if I'm not mistaken. All right, correct. 270 degree. Then we also have to top. To top, meaning from bottom to top. Can you see? From bottom to what? Top. And I think the equivalent of this is 0 degree. The equivalent of this is, what am I writing? Percentage. Sorry, degree. So can you see? Very interesting. So, and we can also move it from one direction to another direction. Do you get it now? We can say, okay, we don't want this linear direction. We want it to move from in angle. Maybe I want this to move in this angle down to this side. I can say maybe I can do something like let's say 45 degree. So if I do 45 degree, can you see what we have here? It's moving from here to this side. 45 degree. Can you see it's moving from here to this side? So it's like it's starting from this bottom. starting from this bottom, then to the top, bottom to the top. So it's going to be to top right. So that's the keyword, to top right. Let me use that, to top right. Let's see if we are going to get the same thing. Correct, to top right. That's for 45 degree, to top right. And let's say if we give this a value of 50%, the size now, and we give this value of 50%. Let us see what we are going to have here. Can you see it now? Now the reason why you are having it shaped like this is because it is having equal width and height, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, equal width and height. So I can bring it back to 45 degree. So can you see it? 45 degree. So if I do something like aside from 45 degree, let me do something like is it 270 now, or 360 minus 45 should be like 315, I think, if I'm correct. 315 degree. So let's see what we have. Can you see it? Can you see it? Can you see it? Very, very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. You can see you can move it diagonally. You can change the direction diagonally, and it is very, very interesting. You can change the direction diagonally. So let me bring it back to 45 degree, and then let me change this. Let me change the size. Let me remove the size. So that's that about linear. That's that about linear gradient. Can you see? That's that about linear gradient. So we'll look on that. We'll look at that. We'll look at that. We'll look at this example to build something better. So I think the next thing on my agenda is background image. Background image. Background image. So let's go straight in. So let's look at background image. It is very simple, actually. It's not something that is difficult. So background image property, it is actually used to add a background image to an element. So background image is different from normal image. You can add a background image to a container or to any element, and it's going to serve as the background image of that element or container. So how can we get background image? So first of all, we are going to download an image. So let me download the image, and or let's just look for it on Google. Let's look for nice background image. Let's just look for nature, or I think I have this pixel. Yes. So let's look for it together. This pixel. I think I can use this. Let me use this. So I'm just going to download. Should I download it? Or let me just copy the image address. I think so. I can download it, or I can copy the image address, but I don't want to. Let me download it. Should I? Okay. Let me just copy the image address. Let me copy the image address. So I'll come here. Let's say, for instance, okay, let me create another file. I'll call it background. So background image.html. So background image.html. Then I can do something like this. Can do something like CSS class. background image. All right, so that's that. Then the next thing that I want to do is to create a background image. So say div, then container. So container. Now what we are going to do is, for us to be able to set a background image, ladies and gentlemen, for us to be able to set a background image to a container or to an element, first of all, that background image needs two things. For us to be able to set a background image to an HTML element or a container, that container or that element needs two things. Number one, it needs what? It needs a height value and it needs a width value. It needs a height value and it needs a width value. You have to set the height and the width of that container that you want to apply what background image to. So do you get it now? So here in this case, I'm going to come here, I'm going to create an embedded style, and I'm going to, let's say I want the body now, I want the body to have a margin of 0, body to have a margin of 0. So, and I want dot container to I want the container to have a width. So I want the width of the container to be the same as the width of the viewport. So I'm going to say the width of the container should be 100% or 100 VH, 100 VW, that's 100 view width. I can make it 100%. You get it now? Then I want the height also. I want the height to be 100 view h, that's viewport height. Now after that, I'm going to set my what background property. So the background image property, its primary job is to what? Provide the location of the image file. To provide the location of the image file. So I'm going to come here and I'll say background image. I'll say background image. So after the background image, then I need what we call the URL. That is this, the URL provides the location of the image, whether it is in your local file or maybe it is online. So I'm going to say URL, then I'm going to paste that image that I copied. So I'm going to paste it. Let us view this on the browser. So this is what we have so far. This is what we have so far. Can you see that this image now is covering the size, is covering the entire viewport width and the viewport height of this browser. Why? Because we set the height to be 100 VH and we set the width of the container to be 100%. So this 100% is relative to the entire width of the Windows browser. So now I didn't actually download the image, so I just copied the image address and I pasted it there. I copied the image address and I pasted it here. So let's proceed. So this is what we have so far. But notice that, please notice something. Hold on. So now look at what we have here. Actually, we only use one image. This is the image that we use, this one here. But how come the image is what? Repeating. How come we're having 3 images here? The image is what? Repeating. So this will lead me to the next property, which is what? Background repeat property. Background repeat property. And mind you, all these CSS property that I just taught you now the background image, it cannot be inherited. That's why it has a value of no. It cannot be inherited. But background property can be applied to all elements. Can you see? Apply to. It can be applied to all elements. And the default value is what? None. Let me get this message. Hold on. Now, the background repeat property. Notice when we set the background image, it covers the entire width, but apparently it is repeating. The image is what? Repeating, and we don't want that. Actually, we don't want the image to what? Repeat. We don't want the image to repeat. So how can we do it? So I think it is best I download this, because I don't like the background image. I don't want the background image to show at all. So I'm just going to download it. Let me download it. So hold on, I'm going to download it. Alright, so I've downloaded the image. I don't want this background image. I don't want this background color that comes with the image, so I just want to, so I had to remove it. So to remove this background image, I had to download the image. Then I had to come to this website that has this website, remove.bg. So I went to the website, then I uploaded the image that I want to remove its background color. So I removed the background color, and here I'm going to use it instead of this. So I'm just going to remove this online address, and I'm just going to look for where I save the image. So the image is in this BG1 image. So I'm just going to do BG1 image. So if I save this now and I open this, so now this is what we have. Can you see? So we have 4 images. Can you see? We have 4 images. Now notice that the images are repeating. It is repeating on the horizontal side, and it is even repeating on the vertical side. You can see the edge. You can see the head of the image. Can you see the head? This is the head of the image, the head, the head, the head. So now we can remove the repeat. We can remove the repeat. So for us to remove that image repeating, so we have the value of repeat, no repeat, repeat X and repeat Y, space and round. So the most important aspect of this is no repeat, because you don't want the image to repeat at all. So if you don't want the image, if you want the image to only repeat at the horizontal axis, you can just do repeat X. So you can come here, you can say background repeats. So this is it here. So you can say repeat X. So if you say repeat X, it means that it's only going to repeat at the horizontal side. Then the vertical side has been removed. So if you repeat Y, look at what we have. It's just going to repeat here, but it's not going to repeat on the horizontal side. But in this case, we don't want it to repeat at all. So we say no repeat. So we say no repeat, and this is what we have. No repeat. So this is what we have so far. Background color, background image, no repeat. No repeat. No repeat. So now the next thing is we are going to do is, and also please mind you, we can also add we can add linear gradient and background image together. Just like the example I was showing you here, I was showing you how you can add linear. I'll show you an example of how you can have linear gradient and background image. Let's say, for example, you want to have an overlay of color to this background image. You want to have an overlay of color to this background image. So we can use linear gradient, for example. So linear gradient, so we just want it to transit from one color to another color to serve as an overlay for this background image. So let us try it. So to do background image, to have a background image and linear gradient together, you have to change this background image from background image to background. So you have to change it to background. Then you are going to have a linear gradient. So between linear gradient and the background image, you have a comma. So here you are going to specify. Here you are going to specify the color that you want to use. Actually, you are going to specify the color that you want to use. You are going to specify the color that you want to use. So in this case, let me come here, for example. Let me come here and let me look for a nice color. So I have this website which is called colorhunt.co. So this website will help me pick a lot of colors. So I have a lot of colors to pick from. So I can pick this one and I can pick this one. So I can come here, I can say, okay, I want this first color to be this. and I put an add symbol here, add symbol, and I want the second color to be, let's see what we have. I want the second color to be this, so I can, this hexadecimal color, I can paste it here. So if we save now, let us see what we have. Can you see? You can see the transition from this color to another color, but we cannot see the background image because this linear gradient has covered the background image. So now the idea now is, how can we have both the background image? How can we have both the background image? Hold on, please. The idea is, how can we have both the background image and the linear gradient together? How can we have both the background image and the linear gradient together? Because obviously the linear gradient has covered the background image, but we still want to see the background image and still have the linear gradient. So this kind of thing now is, you can see that this color is blocking the image, so we want to be able to see through this color and see the image. So now we have to make this a bit transparent. We have to make this color a bit transparent, and to make this color a bit transparent, we need the RGBA. So the RGBA is a combination of red, green, and blue with opacity, or opacity. Is a combination of red, green, and opacity. Is very, very important, and I'm going to explain to you the meaning of opacity. I'm going to explain to you the meaning of opacity. What exactly is opacity? So opacity is the degree to which content behind an element is hidden, and it is the opposite of transparency. Do you get that now? It was the opposite of transparency. It is the opposite of transparency. So the opacity level describes the transparency level of an element. The transparency level of an element. The transparency level of an element. I repeat, opacity is the degree to which content behind an element is hidden, and it is the opposite of transparency. So now let's say, for example, in this case now, this color has completely blocked this background image from showing. So it is the opacity is 100%, is 1. So it means that any content behind this background color will not be seen. It is hidden. But we can reduce the opacity such a way that this color can be transparent and it can reveal the element that is behind this color. So, and for us to be able to do that, we need the RGBA, and the RGBA consists of red, green, blue, and opacity. So every color name has an equivalent of RGB, and every hexadecimal color has an equivalent of RGB. So for us to be able to get the RGB of this hexadecimal color, I just have to I need to move my mouse on this color and come to this part here and click on it. Click on it again. Click on it again. It's going to give me the RGBA. Then here also, I'm going to also get the RGBA. I'll click. I'll get the RGBA. So this is the RGB. This is the RGB actually. Green, red, and blue. But now I'm going to add the A. That is the transparency level. I'm going to add the A now, the transparency level. Now the transparency level of an element is from 0 to 1. So 0 simply means completely transparent. 1 simply means completely opaque. Completely opaque, not transparent at all. So now that we have added the A, so we want to make this color transparent. So say comma, then we are going to specify the value of the opacity, the transparency that we want to add. So, and I told you that the value ranges from 0 to 1. So it means that complete transparency is 0. then hidden. If you want the element not to be transparent at all, to be non-transparent, it have to be what? 1. So if you want it to be a bit transparent, we have to choose a value between 0 and 1. So we are going to say 0. Let's say 5. So the same thing too here, comma is 0.5. So it does not receive a unit actually. So here we go. Let us see what we have here. Can you see now? So you can see that it's a bit transparent. We can increase this and we can say, okay, we want this to be 7 and we want this to also be what? 7. If we save, can you see this now? Very interesting. Very what? Interesting. So we can bring it back to 4. We can also bring this one back to 4. If we save, alright, look at what we have so far. Can you see that it is now transparent, and we can also see the what? The color. So that is that. So we have removed the repeat. So the next that we have here is what? The background position. How do you want it to be positioned? The position of what? The element. By default, the position of a background image in an element is always centered around, is always at the top left. Can you see? Top left. So now we can now change the position as we want. We can change the position to either be top right or to be at the center. Do you get it now? To either be top right or to be at the center. Or we can even use a length like pixel. We can use percentage and we can use keyword top right. So now let us see the most efficient way of setting a value or setting a position, or the sufficient way or the best way to set a position to a background image is to either use percentage or to use what? Keyword. Length doesn't really hold much value like that. So you don't use length like 100 pixel, 5 pixel. So you either use percentage or you use what? Keyword. And this percentage also have its own equivalent in what? Keyword. So if we want, like I said, by default, the background image position is always top left. Like I showed you here, top what? Top left. But we can change or we can move this background image from this default position to either move it to the center or move it to the top left, top right, center, and whichever way that we want. So now let's try it. Let's look at some of the value. So this is what we have here. Can you see? Top right. So I'm going to do something. Background position. Background position, where is it? Background position. So background position is a combination of position X and position Y. So that's position X is the horizontal, position Y is the vertical. So let's say right top. Let's save and let's see what we have. Can you see? Right top. So this is the X and this is the Y. So let's say center top. Center top. And let's see what we have. Can you see? Let's say center bottom. Center bottom. Let's see what we have. Can you see it? Center bottom. Can you see it? Interesting. So that's that. And what again? So this one too has its own equivalent in percentage. So center in percentage is 50%. So we can say 50% is 0%. So let us see what we have. So it means that it is what? Center at the left, at center horizontally, and top vertically. So top is 0%. But if we do 100%, that is what? Bottom. So bottom, can you see? Bottom. very interesting. So that's that actually. And what again? So I think that's that, and we can make this to is 0%. So 0% for this is left actually, while 100% is what? Right. So let's see what we have. Can you see it? Interesting. So that's that. Let me see if I can make this fit content, and let's see. Okay, nothing. Okay, let's bring it back. All right, so this is what we have, 100 VUH. So now the next one that we have is what? Background size. The size of the what? Background. The size of the background. The size of the background. So you can say, so it says that you can choose, or sorry, you can change the size of the image by using this property, background size. So value, it takes a value percentage, and it takes auto, cover, and contain. Remember when we're explaining object fit in image, I explained cover, I explained contain, and I explained some other values of what, of the object fit property for image. So let us look at the contain and the cover, because that's the most important values that we use for the background size image property. So background size property set to cover means to resize the background image to cover the entire center, the entire container, even if it has to stretch the image or cut a little bit off one of the edges. I repeat, background size property set to cover means to resize the background image to cover the entire container. So if to set a background size property to cover, it means it's going to resize the background image in such a way that it's going to cover the entire container. So even if it has to stretch the image or to cut a little bit off one of the edges of the image, so it's going to do that just to be able to cover the entire container. So in this case now, let's say I comment the background position, and let's see what we have here. This is still the default position of the element, and I come and I do background size. Background size, and I say cover. I do background size and I say cover. Let us see what we have. Can you see? It has covered this element. So notice that a part of that element has been, in fact, large part of the element has been cut off. All you can see is the hair. You can only see the air, and that is what the destination simply means. It means that it's going to cover the entire container, even if it has to stretch the image or cut a little bit off one of the edge. But apparently in this case, it's not a little bit that this property cut to. It cut a lot. So this is the only thing that is visible to us. Then we can use the background position to be able to see which part of this image will be visible to us. So let us look at the background position now. So I'm going to copy, I'm going to use keyword for instance. I'm going to say top and right. Right and top. Right and top. So let's see what we have. Still the same thing. Let's do center and bottom. Let's see what we have. Can you see what we have? So hold on, I'm coming. Now can you see what we have? So what we did is we said center and what? Bottom. And this is the only thing that is visible to us. We can only see the shade. Can you see it has covered the entire image? But this is not what we want. This is not what we actually want. So let us come back to the other part that says contain. So background size property set to contain means to resize what? The background image to make sure the image is fully visible. So for us to make this image fully visible, we have to set it to what? Contain. So if we set it to contain and we save, Let us see what we have. Can you see? It is fully what? Visible, contained. Fully what? Visible. We can decide to put it at the right. Decide to put it at the right. Can you see? Decide to do, okay, instead of bottom, we can do what? Top. Let's save. Can you see? Beautiful. And the next thing we can do, just to have content around it. Can you see how fine it is? So this is what it means. So now we have what? A background image, and also what? A background color, a linear gradient. A linear gradient. So I can make this, let's say 8, and let's see what we have. Can you see? So I can even change the image. I can say, okay, I want it to be from, I want it to be like to bottom right, comma, to bottom right. Let's see what we have. Can you see? To bottom right. To see what we have. So can make this 8. So you can increase it the way you want. I don't like this, so I'll make it 3. Let's see. So you can change the opacity as you want. Can you see? Can increase the opacity as you desire. You can make this 9. If you save, can you see? Interesting. You can change it as you want. You can even make it 1, if I'm not mistaken. So can you see? That's it. So that's that actually. So let me just bring it back to 0. Let's say 5. Alright. I don't like it like this. I still want, let me make it 8. Alright, so good. So I think I like this. Let me make this bottom. Hold on. I think it's still the same thing. So I think it's still the same thing. So now I can come here, I can write content here now. I can come here and write content. I can say H1. I can write something nice. I can say let me look at something here. What kind of content can I give this now? Let's say photography art is best. And I can do something like a lorem text of 20. And I can do something like an anchor tag. I can say learn more, or something like hire me. Can I do something like hire me? So if I save this now, let's see what we have. So this is what we have so far. Can probably change, can come here and change the font family. I want a nice font family. I can say Sergio, something like this. Alright, good. Then come here, can give this let me put this inside of a container. Let me say banner text. You can copy all of this, cut it and paste it here. So I can come here and do dot banner text. I can give banner text a width of, let's say a width of 400 pixel. Then I want margin top to be like 5%. Margin top to be like 5%, and I want margin left to be like 200 pixel. So if we save, let us see what we have. So I don't want this. I don't want margin top. I want padding top, not margin top. Padding top 5%. So let's see what we have. All right, good. So I can increase it to 5%. Coming. If I over on this, I don't want this. I'm going to do this padding top around, cut it and do it here. So that's what we have. Good. And even the margin, I'm going to remove it. I'm going to do a padding left. Let me just do 5%. Let's see what we have. Let me make it 20. Okay. I don't want this. Or let me maintain the padding. I think padding is better. So we are good to go. Okay, setting the padding here too doesn't really make sense. So I think this will lead me to coming. Did I set margin left? Why am I having margin? Why am I having something at the top here? Please hold on. Save. See what we have. Still having this thing here. It's not supposed to be there. Please hold on, I'm coming. It's not supposed to be there. Did I do anything that I'm not supposed to do? Okay, let me come here and do. Let me do for all elements. I want margin to be 0, padding to be 0, then box sizing to be border box. So if I save, let me remove this one here. So I think I should. All right, good. So this is what we have so far. So this is what we have. Interesting. So can you see how beautiful it is? So that is that. So I'm also going to teach you position so that we can copy this. We can take this element, we can position it anywhere in our code. We can position this anywhere in our code, but more on that tomorrow. So I don't think time will be able to permit me to teach you positioning today. So I'm going to teach you that tomorrow. So please, I'm going to send the video for today. Ensure you watch the video of today and yesterday on. So tomorrow we are going to look at positioning. All right. Until then, do have a lovely day. Bye bye.